It's time for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, the show that helps you be prepared to care for your family regardless of the circumstances that may come your way. Now, here's your host for today, Mark Lamb.
Well, here we are again with Glenn Boblitz talking about sustainable living made easy. We'll have a little teaser towards the end of the show, some things that I'm pretty excited about that we're going to talk about in the future. But today's topic?
And we're talking about pruning your fruit trees.
Okay.
A summer pruning, which most people probably have never heard of. We tend to think of pruning our trees and things in the dormant season, which you should. But summer pruning, our peaches have been picked on some of the yellow peaches, and now the white peaches are coming on, and we've pretty much picked most of them, and now we have some late peaches coming in. But the tree has done its job, and if anybody's got any kind of tree, it just you prune it during the dormant season, and the following spring you get all these little suckers all over it, and the thing just goes crazy. So right now you should be pruning those off. You don't want the tree to use up all its energy feeding a non-productive limb, and that's what this is about.
Okay, so you're going to be proud of me because I did something just the other day, and that was I pruned my tomatoes. I could see some vines that were disturbed, and they weren't producing anything, and I thought, okay, that's pulling energy, something I learned from you just a couple of weeks ago. It's pulling
Correct.
energy for the rest of the vine, so to speak. So I pruned those puppies off, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen next.
Well, most people, when they do that, they think of their plants as one and done. Well, that's not exactly true. We talked about the cucumbers and tomatoes. You just got a lot of leaf there, not getting much out of it.
Right.
So if you prune them off, now it could have a second flush, and that's what it does. It kind of stimulates the plant to put out more fruit. And that's the same principle we're talking about right now on our peach trees. And what it'll do is I'll take out all those suckers, which allows better airflow. It'll also take out limbs that are not producing any fruit. So the tree goes, oh my goodness, I've lost some of my limbs. I need to make sure I've got places for fruit to grow. So it gets a second flush of this growth. So I've trimmed my trees and spent 7 hours cutting some trees. And what it's going to do is going to make that tree put out small buds. Now, these buds are not just limb buds. These are going to be the fruiting buds for next year.
Okay.
So what I've done is increased my harvest for next year. And if you don't do that, it'll just continue to feed these non-productive limbs.
Okay.
So that's not what you want. You also want to remove anything that's damaged. Maybe it got hit by your mower, or deer come through and shoot something up. You want to clean those up so the disease doesn't come in. You always want to keep a continuous bark. You know, that bark is just like the skin on your arm. You know, if you ding your arm, you know what the deal is there. You got to patch it up. So that's what we're doing. We're removing anything that's had any damage, because it's not going to produce any fruit, and this is what everything's about. It's all about the fruit. So removing this stuff will cause a flush in that tree. That flush is going to say, I want more places for fruit. So you have a denser limb that has been trimmed back, and it'll produce more fruiting buds. And that's what it's all about, folks. So that's for peaches. Now, peaches don't come out on the same place every year. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
They come out on the second year wood. Now, this year, when you look at the ends of your limbs, it'll be this real light green, kind of fleshy. That'll harden up. Next year, that's where your fruit's going to come out. So what happens if you don't prune that tree? The tree just keeps getting taller and taller, and so does your fruit. So your fruit's way the heck up in the air, 15 feet in the air on a peach tree. So you want to lower that down where it's easy for you to pick. Well, what that'll do is cause other little limbs to come out. And on them little new limbs, this year even, this year will put out new growth. So those new growth, as we just said, we stimulated the tree, it'll put out fruiting buds on it. So you've lowered the tree down to keep the shape that you want, so it makes it easy to pick. You've stimulated the tree to put out more fruiting buds, and you've created new growth. So on that second year, which will be next spring, you'll see all these new flowers and buds on them, and you'll have a bumper crop. Here's the thing, you'll have a bumper crop. You'll have too many limbs. So next year, you may have to take some of those smaller peaches off when they're the size of a quarter, $half, and remove some of them. And we'll talk about that in the spring also. But you want to remove all of them, or you'll just end up with a bunch of peaches, about 2 inches round, and not the great big 1 pound peach that we're all after. This year we did that very thing in the midway through the spring, removed a lot of the load of the peaches, and man, I got some just beautiful peaches this year. So that's what you need to do for your peaches. Apples are a little different. Apple trees produce a fruiting spur, not just a bud. And you'll see it. It usually comes out on a 90-degree. You'll see where the apple was on it the last year. There'd be a small cluster of leaves around it to feeding the apple. You don't want to cut those off unless it's an ugly limb that's rubbing up against another one. But you want to be able to keep that part of that limb. Now you can go up 3 nodes. Now a node is where the leaf connects to the limb itself.
Okay.
Count 3 limbs up, which is probably be 6 to 8 inches, and trim that one if it's getting wild on you. Now if you want that limb to continue to grow out 3 or 4 feet because you have a young tree, that's fine. You're creating the structure of the tree. Then that's when you want to do the dormant pruning. Dormant pruning tends to be to make your tree structurally sound. You're building a framework, a structure for these heavy fruit loads that are coming.
Okay.
So dormant pruning is for the vegetation and structure of the tree to get it the correct shape. Summer pruning is for next year's fruit. So next year, when you trim your apple tree, or because you did a summer pruning, next year's apple crop will be much larger and have many more fruit spurs, and that's what we're after. And those fruit spurs can last up to 10 years.
Wow.
You'll see the little scars starting to grow a little longer each time, but the fruit will get better and better because it's established. So that's kind of what we want to do on our summer pruning. It also increases the airflow. Most people don't trim their trees properly. They shape it like they would a dogwood tree, this nice round globe.
Right.
Well, that's not good for fruit, because the fruit has to have the sunshine actually hitting the fruit, hitting the leaves that are feeding the fruit. And the only way to really do that is to keep your limbs low and kind of on a horizontal, if you can imagine. In peach trees, they call it open vase, which is creating a bowl out of your tree. Again, trying to keep them fairly horizontal, but the limbs are going to try to reach towards the sun, and it creates this bowl effect. That's very good because you get a lot of air movement, a lot of sunshine through, and you'll just get bigger, sweeter fruit. The more sunshine you can get into those leaves around your fruit, the sweeter the fruit. And that's the whole point here, folks. So that's kind of what I wanted to pass along for you for summer pruning. Now, there's all kinds of videos out there. I can sit and tell you all this stuff, but until you can see the guy cutting and trimming these fruit trees, it's kind of hard to grasp. So get online. There's all kinds of videos. You may have to find 4 or 5 of them that you'll go through to find one you like. And I'll try to put this out on the website so you make it a little easier. But watch these videos so you get a good idea, so you don't go out there and just whack on your trees.
Right.
Last thing is sanitation on trees. If you're whacking on a tree and it's got a little diseased limb and you cut it with your shears, some of that sap from that diseased limb is now onto your shears. Keep a wet alcohol-soaked rag and wipe your cutters off between trees.
So you don't
can either
contaminate
do it
the next one. Yeah.
Every time, if you want to go whole hog, every time you cut off a diseased limb, and there shouldn't be many of them, is to wipe that off. So you're not passing it from one limb to the next. So sanitation is pretty important also. Keeping a good sharp pair of cutters, whether you have hand shears, lopping shears, I don't care what it is, nice and sharp so you make a nice clean cut so the bark can heal up easily.
Okay.
And that's the last on pruning.
All right. Well, let's take a break and we'll pick up on these other topics and tease a little bit about what we're going to cover in the weeks ahead. You're listening to Sustainable Living Made Easy with Glenn Ballblitz.
Get ready for a new soundtrack for your life. Doc Rock, Smith Mountain Lake. It's music that'll take away your troubles for a while.
That's what I'm talking about!
Wake up with Janet and Mark on the Morning Jam. They'll keep you informed and encouraged, and we all need more of that.
This ain't jam.
You're invited to be a part of the Doc Rock family, your feel-good station. Doc Rock, Smith Mountain Lake.
We're back with more Sustainable Living with Glenn Ballblitz. Be sure to look for Sustainable Living on Facebook for even more information and follow-up conversations with other members. Now, here's your host, Mark Lamb.
And we're back. We were talking about pruning, and we kind of tied that up and pruned that whole thing. Where would you like to take us next, Glenn?
All right, back into the garden.
Okay.
We need to do that cleanup. Right now, all the weeds that are in your garden have started to set seed. They're not quite ready to drop those seeds, so you need to get them out now. All that weeding you've done all year long, if you don't get the seeds out from the ones that got away from you, you're going to start all over next year with another 10,000 seeds. So make it your chore to get rid of anything that you see that's seed headed up or starting to get it out. Till up your little weeds, get your garden cleaned up, and get ready for fall planting. Now, most people don't do a fall garden. They're just wore out from chasing weeds or
Right.
just absolutely canning their brains out. But there's a lot of things you can just replant. Carrots is one of them. Most people don't know that carrot will overwinter, and the following spring it'll come through, or it'll get a nice carrot this year. However you want to do it. Beets are a good one to plant. It's a good quick crop. Turnips, of course, they'll last all through the winter, and they add nutrients to your soil. Radishes, you still got a lot of time for all the salad stuff, all the lettuces. The radishes are a good addition. You probably didn't get a good crop this year because it got so darn hot so quick. They all bolted. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, all the cold crops. It was not a good year for them. It just got too hot too quick. Right at the time that they should have been ready to harvest, it got so blooming hot for 2 weeks, and they just didn't do well. So you can replant those. It'll be much cooler by the time they get up to the head stage or the flowering stage or the fruit stage. We should have a good summer, Indian summer as they call it, so you'll have a good crop of those of your typical cold crops, COLE, not COLD. Bok choy. You ever grown bok choy? I
No.
like bok choy.
Okay.
Bok choy is like an Asian cabbage, and it's more leafy, but it does come up and head up into a bundle rather than a big head. They used to do a lot of kimchi with the bok choy.
Okay.
It sounds like we're talking Chinese here. But, peas. Now, some people like fresh garden peas or the snow peas. That's a very good thing to plant this time of year. Planting your garlic and overwintering your garlic. So by the second season, it's a big bulb of garlic.
Okay.
Onions are the same way. You can plant a spring onion this year. It'll put on some growth. It'll take right back off in the spring, and by midsummer of next year, you'll have these big onions. The big Vidalia size if your garden's good. You can plant your cauliflower. Of course, that goes back into cold crop. I had that one out of order. Cucumbers, you can replant your cucumbers. All these plants have a maturity date. And like my cucumbers right now, they're starting to crap out. We pruned them back and it's got a flush. So I got a small crop that's going to come on, but I didn't replant them. Not going to. I've got bukus of cucumbers.
Right.
So, but you can replant. If you didn't get a good crop of cucumbers this year, replant. You still got 60, 90 days of really good warm weather. The ground's still nice and warm. Things tend to germinate really quickly, so it's not like in the spring where you sit and watch and watch and watch and not one bean come up for 3 weeks. But the ground is warm now, so things will germinate fairly quickly. You got some moisture in the ground, so that's good for us.
In the cucumber family, what about, like the squashes and the zucchinis?
That was the next item. All the squash, pumpkins, any vining plant, with the exception of like watermelon. You may get some little short, fat watermelons. They're not going to do good. They're 90, 120 days to maturity.
Okay.
So, but the squashes are fairly quick.
Okay.
Summer squash, butter squash, the butternut squash, acorn squash, and those are good storable items that if you have a good, cool, dry place, they'll last all winter. Butternut squash, we had one that was 2 years old, left it in her green X, and 2 years old. And I figured this thing will be hard as a rock and not be fit to eat. Nope. And it's because of the skin. It preserves them.
Okay.
So that's a very good thing to have as a storage item, long-term storage item. The Indians did a lot of squash.
Okay.
And they would also smoke them. Did you know that?
I did not know that, no.
They would slice them all the way across, and they end up with these rings, and they take the seed and the pith in the center, cut that out, and just thread them onto a pole over a fire, and they would smoke it and dry it all at the same time. And then they would store it and dry it a little more throughout the fall and early winter, and the things would last, all winter long. That's pretty amazing. Isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
Your garden chores, again, I'm going to touch back on these weeds. I hate weeds with a passion, so I do everything I can to keep a seed head from forming. I know it's work, folks. Everything is work. That's kind of why we like the wood chip method, the back to Eden, any kind of mulching, just to keep the weeds down. They're just our nemesis. So that's something that you should really get on this week. And the teaser, folks. We're talking about shortages here, and we know that we're growing all this stuff because crap happens, and it seems to be feeling like it may happen tomorrow. But we're looking to the future, and if something were to happen, even if it's just the continuation of war, we're going to face a shortage of grains this year.
Sure.
All the cereal grains. We get so much out of the Ukraine area, Russia. That feeds the world.
Right.
And if it may not necessarily that we are buying all those grains, but the rest of the world is. So we do buy some from these other countries that you wouldn't think we do, but we do. Rice, we buy a lot of rice from China, know it or not, India, and all of those seem to be in turmoil, which means that shipping that large bulk of grains may not happen, and it is definitely slowing down. So what are we going to do if we just can't get any of it?
Yeah.
Man shall not live by bread alone, but
True.
Apparently bread's pretty high on the rankings. So
it sure is.
What are you going to make, breads or muffins or whatever you're going to have, because that's a big part of your diet. It pretty much feeds the whole world, so it is pretty important. Can you grow your own? Yes, you can. You can grow your own wheat. You can grind your own wheat. You can grind it clear down to a fine flour. You have to sift it out and all that good stuff. But what I'm planning on doing and have been working on is setting up a local granary, a local way for us to have flour available. Now, you can grow corn and make cornmeal. We're in the South, sure you can.
Yeah.
And I do. We grow Ohio blue claret, makes blue cornbread. You can do Jimmy Red corn. Have you ever heard that? That's an Indian. That's an heirloom that's probably 1,000 some years old.
Wow.
Makes kind of pinkish cornbread, but those are very, very good varieties that don't have many diseases. So that is an option, because wheat can be biannual, or you can do it in one season. Plant it in spring, harvest really late fall. But we tend to get bad storms in the fall that lays the wheat down, and that's really bad.
Okay.
So what they do is they plant in the fall, and it grows a little bit, and it looks like grass, and it may come up 6-8 inches, but it won't put out a head, just not enough time. Then it dies back. In the spring, it'll just take off like crazy. Well, the wheat grows on these stems called tillers, and you get more tillers if you plant in the fall. But my point here is you're going to have that wheat if you want breads. We have a huge sourdough group that just, they make some of the best artesian breads in the world. What's the common ingredient? And that's flour.
You got to feed it.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to have that bread if no one's growing the grains here?
Right.
We just can't depend on anybody but ourselves, within our community, within our group, within our inner circle. So somebody's got to be able to grow that, and a small patch can actually produce enough for the entire winter. You can do a 30 by 50 patch would be more than enough flour for you for the entire year.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
But everybody's got to do that if everybody wants flour. And you definitely will use flour. I mean, what's fried chicken if you don't flour it up right?
True.
Good. Okay.
True.
So my plan is to try to get with some of these farmers who are already growing grains and make sure that they can still grow some grains for me. I need to know where we're at. And this is going to take a lot of work. Then you need to be able to grind it, whether it's just a small mill that you bought offline. They even have hand crank mills, but I'm here to tell you that'll wear you out unless you got about 6 kids lined up.
Gotcha.
So we need to work on this, and once I get some more information on that, we're going to put that out and see if we can come up with a plan. So at least our county, our community, our surrounding area can have flour, because there is no flour mills around here anymore.
Right.
It's all been corporate grown, corporate ground. So let's get it together, folks.
Yeah. And I'll leave it at that, because corporate tends to partner with other agencies.
Well, we could do the same thing. We just going to be a really small corporation,
right,
of preppers.
Yeah. There you go.
Prepper corporation.
One quick question about flour. Let's just say we know we have things coming up in the fall that could shake things up. What if I was to buy some flour now and store it? What does that look like?
All right, you can vacuum store your flour, or put it in a Mylar bag and get it sealed up in some buckets. That is definitely doable. Problem is, it doesn't last very long. It has some oils in it, and it tends to last maybe 4 or 5 months, and that's about it.
Okay.
Once it's ground.
Right.
Now, if you have a little small hand crank flour mill, or one that's operated by electricity while we still have it, you can buy whole wheat berries. Now, if you're buying wheat berries, you can do several things with them. You can grind them up and make porridge out of them, a coarse grind. You can eat them whole. You boil them up. You can do that. But that'll allow you a long-term storage.
Okay.
Grains, they found grains in the Egyptian pyramids that still germinated. So, that's 5,000 years. Yeah. So, okay, I'm thinking that stuff will store pretty good. But you have to have the ability to store it. So vacuum packing, Mylar bagging it, putting it in with an oxygen absorber so it can't start to decompose on you, and it'll last a very long time, which is smart to do. But the cost of bulk grains, a 50-pound bag of any type of grain, they're going through the roof. Yeah, because preppers are figuring it out, folks.
Yeah,
supply is going down and the prices are going up. Anybody notice that?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the teaser of it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That gives us something to look forward to in the days ahead. Glenn, if people have questions or they want to make some comments, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just go online. I try to answer things as quick as I can. You know, life gets busy sometimes, and it's getting busier all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go on Sustainable Living Made Easy, you know, have a little faith. I'll get to you. It takes a little time. Or it's starting to heat up.
Is that best to do it through Facebook? Or?
Yeah, do it through Facebook.
Okay.
Once I establish you're not a crazy nut,
Yeah.
we can start doing direct messaging. I understand that, but
Yeah.
you know, but start out there. It's a quick way to get a hold of me. I watch it a lot, so
Okay.
Get a hold of me. Ask those questions.
Yeah.
That way, and if I don't know the answer, you know, the rest of us might.
Yeah.
That's the
true.
good thing about this group.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, once again, thank you for helping us out with the pruning and to talk about, just what's potentially around the corner. We're just prepping. Just simply means you're preparing.
Right. If you're not prepared, you're unprepared.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be unprepared.
No, you're right. Until we do it again, Glenn, thanks.
Thank you.
Join us again next week for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, helping you be prepared and not scared. This podcast drops every Friday anywhere you get your podcast.